Hi there, I'm Christina, and welcome to my podcast. Nuanced Beauty is intended to be a spot where I'll capture some varied thoughts and challenge us to hold to our opinions loosely so that we can see the beauty in others and in ourselves. I want us to dive deeper into those everyday topics or those sticky topics and thoughts that we might shy away from or bulldoze over others with our opinions. Because I think if we all thought exactly the same, there would be no need for anyone else. So let's get nuanced. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Nuanced Beauty. This week, before we get into the topic, I would like to share some fun news. Bill,
We have fun news?
we do have fun news.
What's our fun news?
Our fun news is that I had a discussion with Bill and I asked if he would like to be my co-host. And
I said yes!
yes. So what I found is I love podcasts for the informational format, but I also love the conversational and the interview aspect. And I feel like having Bill beside me in these recordings makes for way less preparation on my part, and it makes for a conversation because, hey, it is a conversation.
Well, yeah, and the thing that you lay out is that there's two things a podcast can do. It can inform you, or it could be a conversation between people that's interesting. And lacking any information to actually provide to you, because we aren't experts in anything, we can at least talk about stuff, and maybe it'll be interesting to you.
Yes, and hopefully it will expand this whole idea of having a nuanced conversation, talking through the nitty gritty, complex details of just random things that you might not know about someone else, and you might grow in your own thoughts. So,
Yeah, a nuanced conversation without the conversation is just a list of stuff.
yes, which is sometimes convenient. I
Sometimes,
enjoy lists.
yeah, I like lists as a friend, but I don't know if I want to take things further.
So, with that, he's not taking anything further because we are married. Well, you're taking it further with me, but no one else.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, goodness gracious. So, for today's topic, how do you eat and how do you cook?
We talked a little bit in the hospitality episode about the vulnerability that goes into sharing a meal with somebody. And we were thinking about how uh, through our story we've learned how to cook. We've cooked in different ways, and it's a place that we've kind of grown, and something that on your life revolves around. You eat 21 times at least a week, and it's not something that is that comes naturally. And everyone does this differently. It works differently in everybody's household, and we just thought we'd talk about that because food's cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as we like end up being more and more just in our own homes, we aren't sharing meals with other people as frequently, and so we like miss those learning opportunities to try other people's foods, talk about recipes, and obviously we can find great recipes online and we can stretch our cooking skills that way, but there's just something nice about sharing it with people.
Well, for sure, and I think the way the internet's actually been more hurtful than helpful in this because I think we get stretched in all the wrong ways. One of the things that I've always found very frustrating if you Google any sort of recipe, it's a lot of new twist on an old classic, which is great if you know how to make the old classic already and you're willing to do a new twist. And then you do this and you get all these expectations of what a meal has to be. Like, oh, I'm gonna make a meal for my family on a Tuesday night, and it's gonna be this Asian fusion with Greek undertones to it. No, let's just learn how to make like a simple thing well.
Yeah.
And so, like an old Betty Crocker cookbook is actually the best thing you can have. And in fact, we didn't talk about this before we hit the record button, but one of the ships that I was on when I was in my sailing career was a little tugboat, and the tugboat only had 6 guys on it. And so we didn't carry a cook the way most ships do. So we just had one guy, the most junior guy, make one meal in a day. And this was just like a 19-year-old dude who had never cooked in his life, but he was the junior guy. And we just had some old Betty Crocker cookbooks that had very basic recipes in them, and they were awesome. So I
Yeah.
feel like the infinite variety that the internet provided with regards to cooking was actually more detrimental than anything.
Almost like analysis paralysis,
Yeah, and
caused
also
by.
just the expectations of
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
new.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think with that, like, there's kind of this question of like, are you a good cook or are you a bad cook? Or are you always like gonna not be great at cooking and such? And I kind of think
Who do
that
you think's a better cook, me or you?
I don't know. It depends on the
You know.
meal. Depends on the meal. But I think that I could kind of I could go back and I could say that there are inclinations like some people I think do have a natural knack for flavor pairing and they have a knack for like taking a recipe and modifying it and just making it work. And then other folks will follow a recipe to a T or feel a level of anxiety to go away from the recipe.
Mhm.
Bill. That's
That's
an
an area
area of
of
growth.
growth for
Yeah.
me. So I josh with Christina here about who's the better cook, but she is very much that person who was like, oh, we have these three things in our kitchen that probably taste good together, and she puts them together and they taste good, and it drives me freaking nuts because I've put so much thought and energy into what I'm going to make whenever I make it. When we first got married, Christina and I got married when we were 22. We had never lived on our own in any context. We went to a military school. Like we had, uh, three hots and a cot, and that's like we didn't get to make our own stuff. So we got married. And we were kind of playing house there in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think for like you kind of grew up with a lot of frozen meals, and
Hmm.
for me, we during the time that I was living with my dad, we shopped at Aldi's a lot. So I grew up with some frozen meals and canned goods and mixing random things together, like a can of corn, a can of Rotel, and a can of green beans is a great veggie side. Or like mac and cheese with a can of Rotel and some tuna. It tastes good. But besides those examples, um,
I challenge you to think of an example that doesn't include Rotel.
I know that's a good point.
it,
The Rotel just goes
it,
so good with things.
it does.
But like so in those first like couple years, we heavily relied on frozen meals for a bit.
Yeah,
Like
the Bertolli's frozen pasta was our
yes,
jam.
yeah. And then you really dug into the cooking show
Yeah,
Alton Brown.
the Alton Brown, that goodies. I feel like in the beginning, we really, if we were trying to get fancy, we'd put bell peppers and onions in a pan and sweat that down and then do something with that. So, really the smell of peppers and onions in a pan just like takes me back to that first year. But when we graduated in the summer. We got married at the end of June. I went to sea at the end of July. I was gone for 2.5 months, and I got back November 1st. And I thought, Thanksgiving's coming up. I'm going to figure out how to do Thanksgiving really well.
Hmm.
And so I watched a lot of Food Network. I got really into the show Good Eats, which gets really into the science of cooking, but also it really really focuses on like how do you make scrambled eggs, like just scrambled eggs, not scrambled eggs with an Asian twist or whatever, just scrambled eggs. Keep using Asian as an example, but I'm trying to say like with weird twists,
Something, yeah.
with something, uh,
Santa Fe scrambled eggs.
whatever.
Yes.
Uh, and it was on around 10 in the morning. When I wasn't at sea, so I had nothing else to do. So it's actually kind of hard to get myself up in the morning. We have nothing to wake up for. So I made it most of the time. Uh, and got really into cooking kind of that way. And ended up really enjoying it. I was the one making muffins and sending it to work for Christina for her office.
Yes, it was good.
Hmm.
But that like that's the thing is like there was a little bit of drive to just discover food and figure out what worked and kind of expand our food choices. I would say like it's not like it was like an overnighter.
Mm-mm.
Like and we're still like learning new flavors, techniques of cooking, like and we've just expanded. Like I think in one season we got into a rut because we were trying to do the Costco shopping
Hmm.
and we would buy like because you can get meat, like a large quantity of meat for cheap. and cheaper. And like it just got so bland. Like you'd go to Costco, get this big, or like amount of
Well,
food, and then it would just be the same meats and that. And we didn't have the variety.
mhm,
Like today, I feel like we know how to cook chicken 10 different ways. But at that
mhm.
time, I feel like we only had like
Well,
two or
and I
three.
wouldn't give us that much credit. At the time, we were also heavily into CrossFit, and we're
Hmm.
just like, "Oh, chicken breast and broccoli are the way." And
Yeah.
we we could say, "Oh, we got better at cooking," but I think we just realized that basil and oregano make everything taste delicious. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of the go-to. Like
Yeah. And some garlic.
and garlic powder. Just put garlic
Yeah.
powder on everything, and it works. It's not that hard. That's why I want to continue to emphasize that the expectation is, oh, cooking is this pinnacle that my grandmother achieved and nobody else ever will, and I'll never match up to that or never match up to that one friend I have that cooks. And frankly, we'll have guests over. We just have some ground beef, a can of ragu, and some pasta, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is so great!" And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we worked real hard on it."
Yeah. Yeah. Like
It's
there's just yeah, it like you can get more complex. Like you've made a like bourbon pecan pie,
yeah.
and
So
that was delightful.
I got there because that recipe was actually for like spiced pecan. So the first time it was like supposed to be a pecan pie, but it was crazy spicy.
Hmm.
But that gets into the whole recipe thing. So I used to be like I'm gonna follow this recipe to the letter. And if
Hmm.
there's like one thing that's off, I'm going to freak out, man, because like I'll make it, man. I'm not gonna guarantee the results. I know it's gonna turn out well if I follow this recipe, but if I change the recipe, I don't know. So we went and visited my parents, and my stepmom also got kind of into cooking in her retirement, and she wanted me to make this pecan pie that I've been talking about. And this pecan pie had Lyle's golden syrup in the
Hmm.
recipe. And if you don't know what Lyle's golden syrup is, it's the same kind of thing as corn syrup, except made from sugar cane rather than from corn. Most pecan pie recipes use corn syrup. I didn't really know that. I just knew that the Alton Brown recipe had Lyle's golden syrup, and I could not find Lyle's golden syrup in the small town grocery store in northern Wisconsin.
Hmm.
My parents also didn't have bourbon on hand, and there's supposed to be bourbon in this recipe. So I was about to buy
Buy a
like a
whole bottle of bourbon.
$35 bottle of bourbon, and my dad freaked out. I'd buy a whole thing, but if I don't follow the recipe, it's not going to be good. And I don't know. I don't know. It might be good. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
loosened up on that a little bit.
A little bit for sure. That was a good. That was. Hey, we didn't make the pie, but you made it at our house
Hmm.
once, and it was great.
It was great
It was so good,
because I followed the recipe.
and it was like a labor of love for sure.
Hmm.
But like that kind of leads into like another question of what makes a meal a meal.
Hmm.
And this is a topic that stands out most for me because I think in the past 3-ish years, I've really like changed my perception of what a meal is. Um, like for lunch, someone might be all about a lunch is a sandwich. It has to be a sandwich or a salad. Like it needs to be a cold thing. Like you're not going to cook an entree for lunch or it's leftovers. But there's kind of these like boundaries or parameters that we've put around what makes something lunch or what makes something breakfast, right? Like we've had Brenners and they've been amazing.
Oh yeah,
So
we should do that more.
yeah, it's good. But like along those lines, what makes a meal? Um my lunches, I think is like the most drastic difference for me that stands out is I like to make almost like a charcuterie board for lunch. Like I will have some olives, I'll have some blueberries.
If you don't know what charcuterie is, it's a grown-up version of Lunchables,
Yeah,
except it's not prepackaged, or they do sell them prepackaged now. But yeah, it's
it's delightful.
yeah, just throw
Like
definitions out there.
yeah, or crackers, I'll cut like here's one that it's so flavorful. I'd slice cucumbers and add a little bit of cream cheese and some smoked salmon on top. And I'll slice bananas and I'll put a single walnut on top of a banana, and it's like eating a banana walnut muffin. And so the flavor's great. Or like mozzarella balls, cherry tomatoes with a little bit of balsamic. There's just a bunch of flavor in my lunches typically, and they don't match the standard what makes a meal, or beef jerky. I'll have beef jerky with my lunch for protein. And I'll add pecans or almonds and just whatever I have in the kitchen. And I've chatted with friends on this, and one of my girlfriends, when I shared like what I had for lunch one day, she's like, that's not a lunch, that's a snack. And I'm like, well, it would be if I thought of it like a snack, but it's actually a full meal. I'm getting, like, if you wanted to learn macros, which I don't, I'm getting protein, I'm getting fats, I'm getting carbs, and I do not think of it as a snack.
And it's volume appropriate
Mm-hmm.
for a meal.
Right.
Like if you just had like a couple of
6
walnuts,
almonds,
yes, that'd be different. But it is interesting. And I'm sorry you weren't done with that, but you're talking about Brenners. And I'm reminded of uh, when we did CrossFit and we had these like nutrition challenges. They were that coach would challenge us to like, you don't have to eat eggs for breakfast. His whole thing was that eggs were an inflammatory food, and maybe,
it
but
can be. It depends on the
sure.
person. Yeah.
But he was saying you can eat chicken and broccoli for breakfast too. It's not going to kill you. And we tried that, and it actually was awful. I actually did think I was gonna die. Oh,
tuna and avocado.
we ate soup.
Oh,
it's the worst.
Oh, it was not good.
and why is that? That just because it's the morning, you feel like you.
But avocado toast with some salmon and some sprouts. That's
Why
delicious.
is it different? Why is it different?
I don't know.
But it is.
It tastes different.
I'm not arguing that's not. It definitely is. So for most of our marriage, because I sailed and I'd come home, and I wouldn't have a job for months. I couldn't sit at home doing nothing all day, and then Christina worked all day and then came home and then cooked me dinner. That never made sense. So I was the one who cooked most of the time. And even after I came ashore, I was always in the less stressful or demanding job than the two of us. So it was always uh, most of the time me cooking. It's actually been interesting in our current my current job that I'm not cooking. I feel really uncomfortable with that, actually.
Most of the cooking, yeah.
Yeah. But it's something that we found almost challenging. We talked to other folks, and they had the exact opposite thing. The wife was always the one that was cooking,
right.
or
so the division of labor in your house and how you divide cooking, or do you get your kids involved with cooking too, age appropriate cooking with kids?
One of the things I don't like about the podcasting format is I'm really trying to not ask, so how do you guys do a thing? But you're not here. And so we do have an email. I want to remind you all. It's the thing that it is.
nuancedbeauty@yahoo.com.
I actually am very curious when we're saying, hey, here's how we do things. And some other people do things other ways. How do you guys do things?
Yes. I love your feedback.
We'd absolutely love to continue conversations. But
yeah, and I think the other thing to touch on though with the division of labor around cooking, that's another area that it just falls into like your own opinion, how your mind can get stuck on something. And if if a guy's a really good cook, someone else might be like, oh wow, that's so amazing and so unique. And it's like not true. That doesn't
your
have
husband's
to be
gonna
true.
cook dinner, can he handle that?
Yeah, or that other reaction of like, oh, can he cook? Like, or like the idea of you can only use the grill and I cook in the kitchen. And it's, again, like, it's not a bad thing if that is your like favorite way of cooking, or you divide your cooking responsibilities in your house a certain way. It's just I guess holding loosely to the idea of what, like, who has to do the cooking. And in different seasons, like for us, the season that we're in right now, the cooking mostly falls under me and the grocery shopping. But at other times when my job was way more busy, the cooking fell in your hands.
I guarantee you, if you go back to work, that's what's going to happen again.
You're going to be cooking?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm very good at slacking off of work.
Yeah, that's valid. But I think with that, all right, we're keeping an eye on our time.
Yeah, we're getting close to the end. I do want to bring up something that I remember Christina says in her intro, I guess our intro now. Do we need to
Oh,
re-record
we might
this?
need to re-record our intro.
Oh man, we're gonna make that really corny if I'm going to be involved in this.
Okay.
Uh, uh, one of the podcasts she listened to, and I don't remember which one, talked about this concept of plan your hot dogs. And I wasn't even listening to this podcast. She was, and I was just also there. But it really stood out to me. Again, I come back to what are the expectations? And if your expectation is, no, I need to cook a meal every night, you're gonna get burned out with that. And what I appreciated about this person is she was saying, hey, plan the easy meal. We kind of poo-pooed the frozen meals at the top of this podcast. Like, oh, we really relied heavily on the frozen meals.
And we still have them. It's just, yeah,
We still totally we have them, and then part because
yeah.
uh
This idea of like plan easy meals so that you're not always like shooting for the stars or
you're
getting really
gonna
complex
have
meals.
a day or two in every week that you just have a crap day
Yeah.
and you just don't feel up for cooking.
Whether it's a pizza or it's legit hot dogs or chicken nuggets or
Which, by the way, when did hot dogs become a kids only food? I love hot dogs, but I feel like I'm not allowed. Like those are the kids' food, and I'm not allowed to eat them
yeah. It's because we only have a certain number and I plan for the week.
because you planned your hot dogs.
I planned my hot dogs.
uh,
It's valid.
but yeah, so we're talking about cooking, and we're talking about how, oh yeah, people should cook because cooking's great and it's not really that hard if you just put not even that much thought into it, but just set your expectations appropriately, but also set your expectations appropriately and plan for some easy meals because that saves you the disappointment of man, I didn't live up to this standard today.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't live up to my own expectations of cooking meals for 5 days this week.
Yeah,
And then
removing if you feel a sense of
shame.
guilt or shame around the
Hmm.
aspect of cooking, and I mean that also plays into takeout.
Hmm.
Like if you have it in your budget and like you're in, I mean you could be a single person too and not be married. We're just speaking from a married
Hmm.
couple. Like do takeout. Plan your hot dogs, frozen meals, like have those opportunities where someone else is doing the cooking for you.
Hmm.
So I think that sums up cooking. Um, you got anything else to add?
No, I think we hit our points.
All right. And as Bill said, uh, hit us up. Email. We love your feedback. Nuancedbeauty@yahoo.com. Take care, guys.
And thanks, y'all.
As we're talking about what we eat and how we cook, I thought a great book to recommend this week would be The Pegan Diet by Dr. Mark Hyman. 21 Practical Principles for Reclaiming Your Health in a Nutritionally Confusing World. I had listened to a podcast with Mark Hyman, and he shared that he created this book because he was at some meeting or convention and they had a conversation going, and they had a paleo and they had a vegan. Um, Person discussing, and things were getting a little tense, and so he interjected like, well, if you're paleo and vegan, I must be pegan. And that's how he came up with this idea of the pegan diet. And I enjoyed this book because the 21 principles that he kind of shares are they're good topics to explore. Like principle 1 is using food as your pharmacy. Principle 2, eat the rainbow. Principle 3, follow the 75% rule. He has a couple other that are fun in here. Like, let's see, eat like a regenitarian. So that's kind of like regenerative agriculture. Um, principle uh, Principle 18, make healthy eating affordable. That's a great topic. Or eat to boost your mood, eat for longevity, eat for gut health. And then toward the end, he gives some recipes. And this was probably the third or fourth book that I read as I was exploring eating and how eating impacted your health. And I felt like it is a pretty simple message, and the way that he presents the information is very straightforward. It's a quick read, and I think I definitely benefited this because, as we mentioned in this episode, we had a season where while we were doing CrossFit, we did an elimination diet for a short time. And we like we ate very bland for a little bit, and eating was not fun, and but it was with like the intention of this being short term and going all in. And so what I think I really enjoyed and got out of this book is this idea of your diet kind of blending these different food concepts, whether it be paleo or vegan, and just exploring food overall and these various principles and how confusing it can get when we talk about all these diets, and how something will come into the spotlight and it'll be the latest hype and then it'll fade away. And there's just so many things with dietary trends. And I think that this book was encouraging for some baseline information, um, that wasn't too restrictive, and it was general enough that I think the principles apply to anyone as they're exploring and kind of honing in on how they're eating and how they're cooking in their household. So, again, that book is The Pegan Diet by Dr. Mark Hyman. I hope you enjoy. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, would you consider leaving me a review or possibly share it with a friend? And if you would like to get in touch, you can send me an email at nuancedbeauty@yahoo.com. Take care until next time.